It's NCAA Championship Week, and we are diving right into the 2025 Men's National Gymnastics Championship preview with a small recap of the Osijek World Cup. For those new here, I'm Kensley, the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics. This is episode 66, where I preview the 2025 NCAA Men's Gymnastics Championships. So the NCAA Championships are happening this weekend. The men's portion is happening in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and the championships were last held there in 2014 when Michigan won at home with an incredible team consisting of gymnasts like three-time Olympian Sam Kulik, Olympians like Caesar, current Michigan assistant coach Jordan Gerenstrom, and social media influencer Stacey Irvin. So I was actually there in 2014 and I was the floor manager for the championship there, and it was really special to see Michigan win at home at that time, and I'm really looking forward to being back there in Ann Arbor. So the NCAA Championships happens in two parts. There's a qualifying session and a final session. There are two qualifying sessions on Friday. The first qualification session is the easier session to get out of. So the three teams that are probably going to make it out of that session are more or less set. So that session is going to happen at 1 p.m. Eastern time. The 6 teams competing in that session are Oklahoma, Nebraska, Penn State. So those are the 3 that most people think are probably pretty easily going to be moving on into finals. And the final teams are Air Force, Cal, and William & Mary. Now the second session, the evening session at 7 p.m., this is the session where it's a little bit more unclear who are going to be the 3 teams moving on. So you have Michigan and Stanford, who again, probably pretty easily moving on to finals. And then you have this pretty tight battle between Illinois and Ohio State, who in the rankings are just a point apart with their average over the 2024-2025 season. So that's going to be a close battle to watch. And then Army and Navy are in that session as well. Now, the format for the championships is 4 up, 4 count, meaning that 4 athletes are able to compete on each event with all 4 scores counting. An additional athlete is allowed to compete for the chance of earning like an all-around spot. So the athlete has to compete on 3 of the events for a team, but can compete an additional amount of events so that they can have a qualifying score for the all-around. So an example of this might be someone like Asher Hong of Stanford, who might be competing 5 events for the team, maybe not pommel horse, we'll see, but he could put up a qualifying score in that 5th spot for pommel horse so that he could get an all-around score. Now, he doesn't actually have to compete the all-around because he's probably going to be on a team moving forward, so this isn't something that we really have to worry about in qualifications as much for him, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So the finals are happening at 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, and this is where all the finals happen. There's a team final, an all-around final, and an event final, all happening in the same competition. So there are pros and cons to this model. So the pros are that all the athletes get to compete under the same judges in the exact same session at the same time. Now, the cons are, in my opinion, that having the individuals competing alongside the team competition kind of slows the momentum down. So in previous years, there actually used to be 3 days of competition for the NCAA Championships. So there used to be a qualification day, a team and all-around final day, and then an event final day. And I kind of wonder if the NCAA is going to move to a different format in the future. They've tossed out a couple different ideas, and I wonder if they might in the future move to mimic something like the women do. So it's really interesting to me because there are like 4 times as many Division I women's gymnastics teams as there are men's teams, and the women only qualify 8 teams to the national championships, while the men qualify 12. They literally qualify 80% of the available teams to the NCAA Championships, which is just kind of amusing. And so if you're looking for a solution to this, and while I personally love the 3 days of competition with event finals, I do know it is really expensive for a host institution, and also the athletes are pretty drained after 3 days of competition. So I kind of wonder if they might end up considering doing something that might mimic the women. For example, maybe they would only send 4 teams to the finals instead of 6 teams. And then in like that 5th rotation, you could have like a group of all-arounders. And then in the 6th rotation, you could have the event specialist. So I'm just kind of like brainstorming and thinking out loud here, but I do what's come to the attention of men's gymnastics and ESPN and NBC and some of these other broadcasters is they're really focused on bringing the best package possible for a TV audience. And if your right team is the big competition that's going to be happening, and if you have this momentum going, and like, let's say there's this crazy battle raging between Michigan and OU and Stanford, and then like it's going and going and the momentum's building, and then it's like, okay, and now we're going to pause the momentum and we're going to allow the individuals on pommel horse to compete so that they can have their shot at the pommel horse national title. And it doesn't necessarily create the most comprehensive package to sell. And I'm in no way saying that those individuals aren't valuable or that they shouldn't have the opportunity to compete for a national title. Absolutely not. But what I am saying is I kind of think that there needs to be a little bit more brainstorming for how to make this a more efficient competition and a better package for TV. So if you have thoughts on this, I would love if you would email them to neutraldeductions@gmail.com. I do have a lot of contacts in the industry, and I would love to start brainstorming how we can make men's gymnastics even better for TV. Okay, moving on to predictions. So barring an Oklahoma women's team meltdown and quals implosion of 2024, OU, Michigan, and Stanford are advancing to team finals without a question. Now, I think Nebraska and Penn State should go pretty easily through in session 1, but I think in session 2, there's going to be a really big fight between Illinois and Ohio State. Now, the other thing that I think could be really interesting in terms of like maybe an upset in who moves on to finals is a lot of teams, especially the big teams, are going to be downgrading during qualifications. And it is possible that someone downgrades themselves right out of finals. It has actually happened before. So all of that in mind, don't be fooled by a lot of team scores from their results in qualifications. There is going to be downgrading for sure. Last year, Stanford, I think, had something like a 5-point swing in difficulty from qualifications to finals. So if you see, Stanford sitting down in like 3rd or 4th after qualifications, it's probably not real. Like, they are going to come with more difficulty in finals, and I believe probably Michigan and OU will as well. I think probably Illinois and Ohio State are going to have to go full out to try and just get into the final. So they're probably going to do full difficulty both days, depending on who gets in. So those are some of my predictions there. If you have an athlete from, let's say, Illinois or Penn State, like if the team doesn't advance, how do they make it through? So the way that individuals can make it through to the finals is they need to be top 3 in the all-around from the first session and top 3 in the all-around from the second session. So 6 total all-arounders. And then you need to be, for event finals, top 3 on each event, not already pre-qualified as an all-arounder from each session. So let's say if you had someone like Cam Nelson, if Cam Nelson did the all-around, but he was ranked also number 1 on vault and number 1 on floor, and he qualified through the all-around, the number 4 on floor and number 4 on vault would get to go through because Cam's spot would be taken via the all-around. Okay, so let's workshop this even further. Let's say, for example, Stanford, Michigan, OU, Penn State, Nebraska, and Illinois all go through. This means that athletes who were on teams like Ohio State, Navy, Air Force, Cal, Army, and William & Mary, as well as the pre-qualified individuals from Greenville, Springfield, and Simpson, are all vying for these individual spots. So if you take the current rankings from regular season, then on floor, that would be Cam Nelson, Jesse Picale, and Evan Wilkins going through. On pommel horse, it's Patty Hoops, Parker Thaxton, and Aiden Lee. On still rings, it's Tyler Rockwood, Cam Nelson, and Isaiah Drake. On vault, it's Cam Nelson, Ricky Mays, and Braxton Jones. On parallel bars, it's Theodore Wildgatterud, Tyler Burgess, and Eric Upton. And on high bar, it's Christian Grahovsky, Isaiah Drake, and Tully. And then for the all-around, Eric Upton, Brian Solomon, and Caleb Palacio. So out of all of those athletes, There are only 3 athletes who were not on teams: Ricky Mays of Greenville, Braxton Jones of Simpson, and Caleb Palacio of Springfield. Those are the only 3 athletes not on teams who would actually be qualifying through as individuals. If that just tells you how hard it is to qualify in as an individual. And when we're talking about event finals, I cannot tell you the inequality and the benefit that comes from being on a really good team. So for instance, right, it's kind of generally understood that Michigan, OU, and Stanford are going to go through. So Michigan could, for instance, rest Charlie Larson, or he could just have a really terrible day and he's definitely making it through to event finals. Whereas someone like Cam Nelson or Jesse Bekele, who definitely should be in floor finals, but Ohio State might not make it through as a team, that means that they have to be better on 2 days of competition versus other athletes who only have to be good on 1 day of competition. So that's also something to keep in mind for event finals. When it comes to predictions, I think that Shane Wiskham on Twitter or X, no, not Shane Wiskus, Shane Wiskham said it best. So they said it's going to come down to the health and quality of the stars of the main 3 teams. Bennis and O'Donnell versus Michigan's Judah and Richard versus Stanford's Walker, Hong, and Burkhart. And I honestly could not agree more. Bennis and O'Donnell started the season on the sidelines with injuries, and it really is going to be a fight to the end to get them in the best shape possible. They really are true game changers, and too many people are sleeping on OU in the team championship, despite them actually being ranked number 1 all year. I think people have pretty much totally cast them aside, and I don't think that they should be doing that. So Frederick and Paul are true stars for Michigan. Both of them are members of the 2024 Olympic team that won bronze. But there are some concerns. So Paul Judah only recently returned to all events, being really cautious with his body. And Frederick often can be inconsistent in big moments. And it's something that's often overlooked by the media. But Frederick is either brilliant or he chokes in big moments. And it's usually on high bar where these moments come out. And so Paul Judah wants this NCAA team championship more than I think any human has ever wanted anything else in their entire life. He stayed on a 6th season for this stream to win at home. And the last time Michigan were national championships, it was at home in Ann Arbor in 2014. So the pressure is going to be immense. And the question is, can these 2 superstars handle the pressure? Finally, Stanford. Their stars, Asher Hong, Coy Young, Colt Walker, and Taylor Burkhart. Stanford has been plagued by injuries all year. They come into this year's competition in 3rd, despite having the most difficulty of any team in the country. They are also coming in as the reigning 5-time NCAA champions. No team has ever won 6 in a row, and they want to change that stat. So Stanford does have the edge in terms of difficulty. They just simply aren't as unbeatable, in my opinion, as they have been in the past. So in other years, it was basically guaranteed if Stanford showed up, this was the year. And I think that the open door that is how Stanford is performing right now is going to have Michigan and Oklahoma perform at their absolute best. There is this sense of hope that it's not just guaranteed to go to Stanford this year. And so my feeling is it's going to come down to Michigan or OU, and it's going to be a battle of, are we going to see Emerito Donley lose it, or are we going to see Paul Judah lose it? And actually, I'm just not thinking of it. Maybe it can just be a tie, because I love tears at a competition. And we've all seen Paul Judah lose it in competition, when he won the NCAA all-around title, when he made the Olympic team. His emotions, it just makes for such a good story. And then at the MPSF championships, Emerito Donley was just crying and just so overwhelmed by emotion. And that is what good sport and good stories are made of. So maybe they'll just tie. In terms of individual titles, I mentioned this a bit earlier, but I'm just going to restate it. I cannot overstate how important it is to be from a top team. So like Ignacio Yockers, like they won't even put him up on pommel horse in qualifications, or he has a terrible qualifications. It does not matter because OU is almost certainly going through. Meanwhile, other top contenders like Patty Hoops from Air Force, Parker Thaxton from Ohio State, Brandon Ning from Illinois, and Aiden Lee from California, they're on teams that are very likely to not make finals. So they have to be consistent both days. And so there is this inequality. And I just wonder if it is going to benefit those athletes who only have to compete once versus those who have to compete both times. So for the all-around, I'm going to go Frederick Richard. For floor, I think probably either Taylor Burkhart or Chase Mondi. Pommel horse, I'm really torn between Patty or Brandon. I don't know. Brandon's been scoring a little bit better internationally, but Patty has been scoring better in the NCAA, so I think I would give like slight edge to Patty. But I think there's really like 4 guys that title could go to. Still rings, if Asher Hong doesn't fall, that title is his. No, that's not debatable. He is the cream of the crop. Again, if he doesn't fall, that's his title. Vault, I think, is probably going to go Cam Nelson. Man, that Randy is just spectacular, and he looked really, really good and solid at Big Ten Championships. Parallel bars, I think, Josh Carnes has just been so solid all year. Frederick Richard could sneak in there. Again, someone like, there's a lot of Michigan guys who are really good on parallel bars as well who could sneak in there. High bar, I want to say maybe Emery Dodonley. The thing I don't like about this list that I've chosen is I would really like to see Taylor Christopoulos win an event. He is, in my opinion, the most underrated gymnast in the NCAA. His lines are stunning. He is so confident in his gymnastics. His scale that he starts off his floor routine is stunning. His tap on his high bar release is like better than almost anyone else in the NCAA. So he is kind of like my dark horse for actually a lot of these events, that if the top guy doesn't come through, I think Taylor Christopoulos could be a surprise winner on several events. I do want to spend just one quick minute on some of the individuals competing in the NCAA Championships that aren't coming with a team. So Greenville, Springfield, and Simpson did not qualify full teams. It's going to be really hard for any of these athletes competing to actually make it into that second day of competition, but there are 3 who I want to highlight who I think probably have the best chance of doing so. The first is Caleb Palacio of Springfield. He has actually had some of the highest all-around scores of the week during the regular season. I will say that some of those scores probably aren't going to be as competitive as we're going to see for the actual all-around title, because a lot of the top guys like Paul Judah and Frederick Richard just didn't compete a lot during the regular season. But I do think that he's probably going to have a really good shot at making the all-around final. And then Ricky Mays of Greenville and Braxton Jones of Simpson, I think, also have a shot at making that vault final as well. This weekend is also really busy in terms of other types of awards. The CGA Hall of Fame is going on, so several athletes have been nominated for that. Probably some of the most known to the listeners are Akash Modi, Steve Legendre, Peter Vidmar, and Mark Sohn. There are a couple coaches as well, A.B. Grossfeld and Francis Allen, and then 2 teams, the 1963 Michigan and the 1954 Penn State team. So that's going to happen at the CGA Hall of Fame banquet. This weekend, they will also be announcing the Nissan Emery Award winners. So this is the Heisman Trophy of men's gymnastics. So Taylor Burkhart of Stanford, Taylor Christopoulos of Nebraska, Emery Dodonley of Oklahoma, Patrick Hoops of Air Force, Joshua Carnes of Penn State, Cameron Nelson of Ohio State, and Coy Young of Stanford are all nominated. Typically, there is like one clear front runner that like everyone knows is going to win. This year, I have no idea. Not one clue who's going to take this award, which is really exciting. And then the final award that's going to be happening is the Elite 90 Award, and this is given to the athlete with the highest GPA. Now, I do know that there are actually several gymnasts that do have a 4.0 GPA, so if that's the case, the tiebreaker is the number of credits. So my prediction would either be Matt Burgoyne of Oklahoma or Matt Underhill of Penn State. I think probably one of them are most likely to win this award this weekend. Other exciting information, I just announced today on social media that I am going to be working with ESPN as a booth and talent coordinator and working in statistics. So this is very similar to my role with NBC at the Olympic Games, and I'm very, very excited to be working with the talent again, to be on site, doing interviews, watching podium training, getting all of the behind the scenes so that we can bring you the best coverage possible. So with that being said, it is a conflict of interest for me to be doing simultaneous work with Neutral Deductions and with ESPN. So I won't be posting live, what the updates are or my thoughts, but I will give a recap the following week of what happened in the competition. Just a really, really quick note of what happened this past weekend at the Osijek World Cup. So on floor exercise, Olympic champion Artem Dokopiat ended up winning, but he won from a tiebreak with USA's June Iwe. So both Artem and June tied on e-score. But what happened is June stuck his dismount, which gave him a 10th higher in score, and Artem went out of bounds, so he had a 10th less neutral deduction, which ended up negating the 2/10 difference in difficulty score between Artem and June. So Artem had 5.8 in D score, June had 5.6. So I hope that makes sense. So even though Artem ultimately had the worst perform routine, he actually ends up winning because he has more difficulty, because the tiebreak then goes to difficulty score. So a lot of people had a lot of opinions on social media about that. But what I will say is for June, for him to tie an Olympic champion at a World Cup, I think that this has basically solidified himself a spot highly in contention, if not directly on the world team for Team USA, if he can stay healthy. So definitely an athlete to watch. For pommel horse, Hamlet Manoukian from Armenia, this new senior superstar, he won pommel horse. On still rings, Ademasil from Turkey won with a 5.7 D score. Really interesting in this final, 3 of the rings routine scored 9.0 or higher, which is not something we have been seeing on still rings. So that's going to be something interesting to watch over the Olympic cycle. Alex Diab of the US was doing a strong routine until the dismount, when his grip ended up slipping and he fell during the dismount. So thankfully he is okay. His coach, Psych Caesar, posted this very interesting post on social media where there was an AI blog post about Alex's performance and quoted Psych, and Psych was like, I actually never did an interview for this. So watch out for AI, generated content, and go to your trusted and reliable sources for gymnastics recaps. On vault, this was a big shocker. So RL Binovic of Croatia was the surprise winner, and it was an especially beautiful moment for him because he was able to take the gold at home in his own World Cup, and oh my gosh, just the tears were flowing. He couldn't believe what happened. And this was a super deep field. There was world champion Artem Dovtian, world champion Jake Jarman, Olympic medalist Harry Hepworth, like so many amazing athletes. And it was really unexpected for him to win. So kudos to him. Parallel bars, Ron Piatev of Israel won parallel bars with a 14.3. For me personally, I feel like parallel bars is still the event where we don't really have a very good idea of what the potential of this event is. So I'm really looking forward to some competitions coming up next week where I think we might see some more innovative competition or routine composition, and sort of see if they can move that parallel bars score a little bit closer to that 15 mark. And then finally on high bar, Milad Karimi of Kazakhstan won. I was a little bit disappointed that Tong Chahong didn't win because he came in qualifications, just knocked it out of the park, 14.933. Some of the best high bar work that we have seen thus far in this Olympic cycle, and just unfortunately he wasn't able to put it together in finals. Looking forward to next weekend, it's actually going to be a really big weekend in terms of gymnastics. There's the Doha World Cup, there's the All Japan Championships, and the French Championships. So much gymnastics to keep up with. We may even have to do 2 different podcasts next week, like a recap of the NCAA Championships and then all of the elite news, because that is going to be so much information to cover. Finally, We did get another 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, so thank you. So Teehee5 said, Kensley is extremely knowledgeable and connected in the world of men's gymnastics, which is hard to find. She provides unbiased and well-researched facts and opinions about NCAA gymnasts, USA gymnastics gymnasts, and world gymnasts. So thank you so much for that review. We really sincerely appreciate it. So I am so excited again to be headed to the NCAA Championships. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think that Stanford is going to win with their massive difficulty score? Do you think Michigan is going to win with that home team advantage? Do you think Oklahoma is going to win because of their consistency all year? Or do you think the 4-up-4 count lineup is just going to wreck one of those major teams and we're going to see something crazy happen like Nebraska or Penn State or Illinois take the title, like something really unexpected? I would love to hear your thoughts, so send this in to me. If you have any other questions, comments, or insider tips, email me at neutraldeductions@gmail.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.